welcome back. My name is Addie of Well Loved Clothing, and I am so excited today because we are doing something so much fun that we have never done before. So I have thrift flipped before, I've sewn before, I've taken old fabric and changed it into new things, but today I am taking new yarn and making it into something completely new. So I've been wanting to get into crochet for a while now, and I've had all of these ideas on what to crochet, but I just haven't taken the leap yet. So I thought today would be a perfect time to just jump in and start making some projects. So I've had this idea in my head for a while of making some kind of like neutral checkered sweater, maybe with some big buttons. I don't really know, but I learned how to crochet when I was maybe 8 years old. So it's been like 15 years since I've crocheted. So this is nothing close at all to expert level, because even when I did crochet, I did like the simplest stitch you could probably do. So I'm gonna kind of be learning alongside you today, but we are going to take this yarn and hopefully change it into an amazing checkered sweater. So let's get into it.
So for this project, we'll need 2 different colors of yarn and some random kitchen scissors and then a crochet hook. So for the specifics about all of these pieces, the yarn I just got from Hobby Lobby, and this is the brand I Love This Yarn in the color Cinnamon. And what you're looking for is this little symbol, and it will tell you the weight of this yarn. So the yarn I got had a 4, so it's a medium weight yarn, and it will also tell you what size crochet or knitting needles to use underneath. It's important to make sure that both of your colors of yarn are the same gauge of knit so that you won't have like wonky bumps and stuff in it. So for the crochet hook, I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook, even though this yarn told me to use a 5.5 millimeter. I did some research and I want tighter stitches, so I'm using the 4.5. Sorry to any crocheter if this is completely wrong, and then I just used a pair of kitchen scissors. I also bought a pattern to give me a frame of reference for what I'm doing, since I've never made anything like this before. So this is a pattern from Lindsay Boutique on Etsy. So now that we have all our supplies, we can start this project. So for my version of this sweater, I wanted to have a little ribbed cuff and then have it kind of a puffy sleeve sweater. So we're going to create the ribbing that's going to go along the sleeves, the base of the sweater, and the neckline of the sweater. So in order to do that, I am casting on my crochet hook, and that's just tying a knot at the base to start my stitch. I'm also linking several different videos in the description of this video to give you a better view on certain stitches that I'm doing, because I have no idea how to explain them very well yet, because I'm just starting. So once I cast on, I'm going to create my foundation chain. So I'm chaining 11 loops because I want this to be 10 stitches wide. So once I have my 11, I am turning back around and stitching into the second loop of my foundation chain so that I only have 10 across once I get this rib section done. To create that kind of knitted ribbed cuff look, I am slip stitching through the back stitch of the foundation chain, which is what I'll be doing through the rest of this ribbing section too. So I'm pushing my needle through the back loop of the crocheted portion and then pulling it through that loop and through the original loop that was on my hook in order to create this portion. I sped it up a little bit just so you can really see what this starts to look like. And if you're following this as a tutorial, first of all, good luck, sorry. Second of all, make sure to chain 1 at the end of every row so you keep a consistent 10 stitches across each row. So now I need to do this for about an hour and keep a really good count, because I need to make sure I have 40 rows of 10 to be the bottom ribbing for the front panel of this sweater. Quite some time to do this portion, and I kept losing count, and so I grabbed my phone and just typed every time I got to the end of the row, because I was trying to count the 10 across and the 40 up, so it was just a whole thing. I recommend writing it down. We finally got to the end of the 40, and I'm already getting so excited, even though this is the first panel, because it looks really good. Okay, I'm already getting so excited because of how well this is turning out already. It's just really cool to see something that you have created just come to life, and something that's lived in my brain for a while just be real. But I'm starting to get really tired because it's like 2:15 p.m. and I just get a little bit of the afternoon slump. I typically need a little pick-me-up because I wake up pretty early in the morning and just start my day off pretty quickly. So right around like mid-afternoon, I start to get really tired, and I'm not a coffee drinker, and so I can't just like grab a coffee and be okay for the rest of the day because it gives me anxiety. It also messes with my stomach because I have some gut issues that the caffeine just does not agree with. So I wanted to introduce you to a little drink that I've been making every afternoon with Magic Mind. So Magic Mind is a productivity shot that is designed to create long-term focus and energy and stress
stress relief. So I am loving this stuff. I've been taking it for about a week now, and I already feel a lot of the effects of it.
So you can take it by itself just like a regular health shot, but I like to make it into a little latte.
Where I just mix a little almond milk, a little honey, get it really nice and steamed, and then I just have a great little afternoon pick-me-up that one, doesn't mess with my stomach, but two, gives me some really great energy that I'm not going to crash from. So these are just little shots. They're kind of like any health shot that you might take, and the reason that it works is because it is matcha based. So unlike caffeine that fully blocks the receptors that tell your body that you're tired, this little Magic Mind uses L-theanine, which blocks only some of those receptors, so you get a more long-lasting and more sustainable energy boost with no crash, without the tummy troubles and without the anxiety of caffeine. So I cannot recommend Magic Mind enough, and they also have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you're interested in getting some but you're not sure if you'll like it, there's really no risk because no questions asked. They will refund you your money if you don't like the product. But I, of course, am loving Magic Mind, so if you're interested in getting your little piece of Magic Mind, you can click my link below and use the code WELLLOVED for 20% off of your order. This is risk-free and really everything to benefit from taking these little productivity shots. So I hope you'll join me on this side of creativity and productivity and just making some really amazing pieces. So let's get back into crocheting this amazing sweater.
Jumping back into the ribbed border portion of this front panel, we're going to stitch all the way across the top to make 40 stitches for the sweater we're going to build on top of this ribbing to actually hold on to. So these stitches are half double crochets, and I've linked a video below that explains them better than I can, but I'll do my best. So in order to do a half double crochet, you're going to wrap your yarn around your hook and then insert it into the stitch. Then you're going to pull that loop through to have 3 loops on the other side of your stitch, and then draw the yarn through all 3 of the loops on the hook, and you'll have stitches that look like this. Once I got the hang of a half double crochet, I stitched all the way across the top of that 40 row, so there should be 40 half double crochets once you're done. So with that row done, we can start building the checkered panel on top of that stitch. So to start this new row, I am chaining 3 because these rows are going to be double crochets, which I will explain in just a second, but I need to start this row by chaining 3 to make sure that it's the same height as the row that I'm creating. So once I chain 3 and skip a stitch, we are going to do our double crochet. So a double crochet stitch is created when you wrap your yarn around your hook, insert into both of the loops that you're stitching into, and then pull that yarn through the loop so you have 3 loops on your hook. Draw your yarn through the first 2 loops of those 3, and then again pull your yarn through the last 2 loops, and there you have a double crochet. To create this checkerboard effect, we are going to have to change yarn in just a second, but first I am doing 5 of these double crochet stitches. I want each square of my checkerboard to be 5 double crochets wide and 2 rows tall. So once I have my 5 double crochets in the dark brown, I'm going to switch to my tan. To change colors, I get to the last step of my double crochet, so I have the 2 final loops left on my hook, and then I create my first cast on loop of the tan yarn. So with those last 2 stitches of the brown stitch on my hook, I am placing the knotted tan also on my hook, and then drawing my yarn through those 3 loops to start my tan. So then I can continue double crocheting with my light tan the same way that I was doing with my brown, making sure to keep the dark brown in between all of the threads of the tan so I can carry that yarn and use it again in 5 stitches. Once we finish our 5 stitches of tan, we can then switch back to the brown. So you're going to pull the brown string taut so all of the stitches sit nice and close together and there's no gaps. So once we're left with the final 2 loops of that last tan double stitch, we're going to pull the brown through it the same way we did at the beginning, but it's super easy this time. And we're going to double crochet 5 more stitches of dark brown before switching back to our tan. We have completed our first row of checkerboard, which is so exciting. So now we are going to move on to our second row. Thankfully, I don't have to change colors because I'm doing 2 rows tall for each checkerboard piece. So I chain 3, skip 1 stitch, and start double crocheting into that tan. I repeat this process of 12 more rows of checkerboard, and once I get to row 13, I start to decrease to make the V-neck portion. This one panel is going to be 31 rows tall, so I'll start the decrease on row 13 and do 19 rows of stitches, decreasing every other stitch only. There's a video linked below on how to decrease your stitches, but we're going to finish up crocheting this panel. I am freaking out with how cute this first front panel already looks, so we are going to repeat the exact same process for the other front panel, making sure to do the decrease and the ribbing and everything the exact same, and then we can move on to the back panel. So to start this giant back panel of crochet, I am starting it off the same exact way with the ribbing at the bottom as I did with the front panels. So I'm not going to go over all that same stuff again since I already said it, but I will tell you the new dimensions that are needed for this. So the rib section that will line the bottom of this back panel is going to be the same as the front. So it will be 10 stitches tall, but it will be 100 rows of those 10 stitches. Once that giant row of ribbing is done, you're going to do the same half crochet row across the whole top of that in order to anchor the checkerboard top. Once that half crochet row is done, we can then turn our stitch back and start doing our checkerboard. This panel took me maybe 4 days to complete because it was just so many stitches. So the checkerboard portion of this was 29 rows tall with 100 stitches across, so this was just so many stitches. Once I had the main rectangle of the back panel done, I needed to add 2 rows of 30 stitches on either side to attach to my front panels. So you can kind of see here what I'm talking about. I just added 2 rows on either side, so basically 1 row of checkers that are the same width as my front panels. So the back panel is done and I'm so excited with how this turned out. Let's make the sleeves now. Okay, to start the sleeve, this is the last time we're doing any of this ribbing this way, so you won't have to see this shot again, but I am starting with a foundation chain of 9 because I only want this cuff to be 8 stitches tall so that it doesn't look so clunky on my arm. So repeating that same process of foundation chain and then stitching into the back loop and doing a slip stitch through both loops. I'm going to repeat that for 40 rows and then we can attach the 2 ends together to make a tube for the sleeve. So to create a tube, I first need to look for the end that's curling. So find your foundation chain and whichever way is curling up is going to be the inside of the sleeve. So put the back of that curl next to the last stitch that you created so we can attach them together. So you're going to put your crochet hook through the first loop of the foundation chain and pull the live loop from the last row that you created through that foundation chain stitch. You're then going to go into the back loop of that first chain and slip stitch by pulling your yarn through both loops on your hook, which sets you up for the rest of your slip stitches to attach this end together. In order to do that, you're going to put your needle through the foundation chain loop and the back loop of the other edge and then pull your yarn all the way through the 3 loops on your hook in order to slip stitch those together. Once you've completed that row, you have a nice little tube to start your sleeve. From that tube, we need to do the half double crochet row, but this one is different because we are trying to increase to double the amount of stitches so that we get a nice puffy sleeve. So whereas the top of this tube right now has about 40 stitches, I need it to be doubled to 80. So I'm going to do my half double crochets and reinsert into every stitch that I make 1 time in order to increase. Okay, doubling that to 80 made me realize that these sleeves are going to take a minute, but I am so excited. These already look super cute. So now we are going to put the checkerboard on top of those stitches. So a double crochet functions exactly the same in a round as it does going straight across like the back panel. So I'm chaining 3, skipping a stitch, wrapping it around, inserting into that hole, pulling through, and then pulling through the last 2 again. And if you need help with that, I said it early in the video and it's linked below. So we are going to repeat that same process of the double crochet checkerboard throughout this whole sleeve, with checks being 5 stitches wide and 2 rows tall, the same as the rest of the sweater. The final size for this sleeve is going to be 28 rows of stitches tall and 80 stitches all the way around. So you're not going to increase or decrease, you just keep it the same the whole way up. So I'm just going to keep crocheting all the way around these 80 stitches because it's going to take a while. And then I'll repeat all these same steps to create the second sleeve so we can put it all together.
Okay, I'm absolutely freaking out because we are almost done with this sweater. I'm just so excited. It's turning out even better than I thought it was going to. So I have all of my pieces here. We've got our cute little back, my 2 front panels with a little V-neck situation that we're gonna put together, and then both of my massively puffy sleeves that I'm so excited about. So we are going to put all of these together, and then I have to do some of the ribbing stuff around the front, but the sweater is almost done, and you've heard me say it a bunch. I'm excited. So let's put all of these pieces together. One thing that I am learning is what the inside and the outside of crochet looks like. I didn't really know that there was different sides, but you can see on this side how the shapes are a little bit more jagged, and you can really see where those threads are ending and creating the new stitches. But on the outside, when you pull that thread taut, you have nice, perfect little squares all around it, and it is still crochet. You can still tell it's crochet, but comparing both of these sides, you can see this side is a lot cleaner than this side. So that's how you know what your outside and your inside is.
So in order to attach the panels, I am laying the back panel face up, and I already attached one just to make sure I knew what I was doing before I told you how to do it. So I am putting the front left panel face to face with the back panel so that my stitches are on the inside. I'm then going to slip stitch the top shoulder piece first so that we can attach our sleeve and the side all in one stitch. You can also do something called the mattress stitch, but it looked really difficult and I just know how to slip stitch, so I chose doing a slip stitch to attach these pieces. So I am going through the first 2 loops of the back panel of my sweater, then the first 2 loops of the front panel, and pulling that live loop through both in order to slip stitch those together, and continuing that process all the way across these 30 top stitches of this sweater. Now that both shoulder seams are attached, we can start to add the sleeve and do the side seam for this sweater. So first I'm laying the large piece inside out and then making sure I know where the bottom seam is on my sleeve. And then I'm gonna flip the sleeve inside out and make sure that seam is facing down. It's not a super noticeable seam, but I do like to hide those things anyway. Then I'm going to mark the top point of the sleeve and the sweater where they need to be attached and make sure that all of my checks are going to match up. Since each check is 5 stitches long, I want to make sure that the pattern continues from the sweater onto the sleeve seamlessly. Once I'm happy with the placement of the checks and the sleeve, I'm starting at the armpit and going up around the shoulder and then down the whole side of the sweater, using the same technique of slip stitching as I did on the shoulder seam. It's just a really simple way to do this, and I think it's super effective and just a cute way to attach these pieces together. So now you can really see this piece coming together because the sleeve and the side are attached, and so I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side, making sure the sleeve checks alternate the way that I want them to. Oh my gosh, it's actually a sweater and I cannot wait for this to be done. It feels like it's gonna be done so soon. So we are going to add the same ribbing that's around the bottom, around the neckline, and then add buttons and buttonholes while we do that. So let's get into that part. So first I need to figure out where my buttons are going to be so that I can crochet my buttonholes in as I'm going. So I'm just spacing them out and marking with a blue thread where I want them to go. And I'll actually count rows once I start crocheting these in to make sure they're the right distance apart. But once I have those marked, I can start crocheting the ribbed edge. So this ribbed edge is different than the one I was doing earlier, which was just the single stitch, because I'm having to add it into the actual sweater as I'm going. So this is just a single crochet into the back loop, so it still gives that sweater ribbed knit look. So I've already started a little piece because I wanted to just test my buttonhole. So I'll continue from there. So I'm pushing my hook through the first hole, pulling that thread through, and then pulling my live thread through those 2 loops. And that's a single stitch. But doing it through the back loop gives it that bumpy back and forth ribbed texture. At the end of each row, you're just going to slip stitch your final stitch and then slip stitch into the main piece of the sweater, turn, and continue single stitching into the back of these rows. After counting 5 rows between buttons, I am going to do a row now with a buttonhole in it. And this is super easy. I'm just crocheting 4 on the beginning side, chaining 3 that are not attached to anything, and then skipping 3 loops at the bottom, and then continuing the row as if it was a regular row. And then you just turn your stitch and continue to crochet into the back loop as if it was a regular row. Once I finish putting my 4 buttonholes in, I just continue doing the single crochets all the way around until I reach the other side. And this part felt like it took even longer because I was so excited to be done, but you can see that the ribbing is now done and I'm going to sew my buttons in the same way that I would sew buttons into any garment, just with a bigger needle and yarn. So I'm marking and counting rows to see where the center of each button needs to be, and once I have those marked, I'm taking a large needle. I should probably use a dull point needle, but I don't have one and I just didn't get one, so notes for the future, but I am threading my yarn the same way I would do any button, and then tying a double knot so it doesn't pull through the crochet, and attaching each button, making sure that the 2 points in the center stay horizontal, and wrapping it 3 times to make sure it stays secure. And once all of those buttons are attached, this sweater is done!
I'm freaking out. I am so excited. I cannot believe that I made this. This is the coolest feeling ever. Just like picking up a new task and being able to just do the dang thing, or like at least attempt to do it. I think it looks amazing though. I love the big wood buttons. I really love all of this ribbed detail. I'm glad that I did that little extra detail because it gives it even more finish. And I love that it looks so polished and just so like official. And a big puppy sleeve, you know these are my favorite things. So I'm loving this sweater, and I really cannot believe that I made this. And let's just look at it as a little cardigan for a second too, because like, it's just so dang good. And I'm going to wear this with so many things. And I think now I might actually try to make like a little matching tank top. That's actually what inspired me to do the sweater originally. So I might do like a little tank bra top kind of thing too. So if I do that, I'll show you that in the future. But for right now, I am just in love with this sweater and so excited and happy with how it turned out. The crop, the puff, the checkered, I can't deal. This is so good. I don't even know what to say about this. So I feel like I'm just gonna leave you here, because otherwise you might just stand here staring at me saying that this is so cute, and like nothing's really wrong with that, but I don't know how entertaining it is. It might be, but I love this. Thank you so much for joining me on this little crochet journey. I hope you learned a little bit of something. If not, I hope that you're inspired to pick up something new and to just try it. The worst that can happen is you don't like it or you're not good at it, and you can practice to get better at it or try something new. So thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that you try Magic Mind to get your own little nootropic energy boost productivity shot. You can use my link below and my code WELLOVED for 20% off of your order on there and get your own little energy boost. So I will see you next week. You are well loved. Bye!